when we say sport technology, it's a pretty broad and vague term, especially the way that some of the commentators describe them. So
Yeah, absolutely.
can you describe I guess, just, sort of high level, the main technical roles at an AFL club?
Yeah, sure. I'm probably one of the more old school guys where I came in as sort of the only tech guy at a club. There's still a few around, which is good. A few guys have stuck around, but traditionally back in the day, it was your one tech guy and maybe have a guy who worked in recruiting half the time and worked half with you. The industry's evolved a little bit now, so your traditional roles are going to be what are probably loosely termed as your analysts. There's up to sort of 3, 4, or 5 of them at each of the clubs, dealing with all the different teams that they have now. So that's another growth area that you start out with just the AFL team and maybe a VFL side, but now you could have up to 4 or 5 teams that are running around. So they all need attention. The analyst roles are probably a little misrepresented to the outside world. People just assume that all they're doing is sort of analysis, but most of the time, they've got a whole bunch of jobs to do, none of which have any analysis component to them. So that's sort of important to realise that while the analysts might have that in their title, they're doing a whole much more than just sitting there looking at data.
Right.
Of course, you've got an IT crew that each club utilises a bit differently. Some clubs have them, the sort of your main footy IT guy branch over to the corporate IT. Some of the corporate IT guys don't even really do much with the footy department except for sort of set them up with computers. It's interesting that all the different club setups, really, really different in how they apply it. And then there's usually some sort of manager who ends up a part analyst, part sort of overseer of the team. That was me in my final few years. And that's really good fun, sort of seeing the guys come through and being able to work together on the data projects and stuff. But and then sort of branching out, the other tech roles end up being a lot of sports science guys. Again, they come with sort of different skill sets. Some will be ultra technical, some will be, mainly just your fitness sort of component or your gym component. And so every club does it quite differently,
Right.
which is a really good thing to see. Everyone has different priorities. It's sort of shared from the head coach and the head fitness guys to how they carve up the pie, I guess. And then the final piece is probably just the recruiting side of things. A lot of data guys in there now, which is great.
So I think I mentioned to you, maybe it was via email a couple of days ago, but I was rewatching Moneyball. I think it was this weekend.
Love that movie.
Yeah, and I think it's widely sort of understood that AFL is probably, at least in terms of the data community, in terms of the armchair analysts, as you refer to them, AFL is probably the most advanced in Australian sport. But I guess when I think back to Moneyball, I think his name is Peter Brandt. He comes into that club with Brad Pitt, and he's the sort of nerdy sort of software developer type guy that comes in, and the mathematician that just starts telling everyone what to do. Like, are there any people like that in AFL clubs or AFL HQ at the moment, or is that still very much the I guess the dream of what could come into clubs?
Oh no, it's heading that way. There are a lot of sharp minds at the clubs. You just don't necessarily hear about them because on that front they're so private about what they do and how they do it. So yeah, I know a couple of guys who graduated from that sort of hobbyist community in the AFL to full-time work. Some of the hobbyists do it and they don't have any ambition to work for a club, which is fine. Others are doing it because they have a passion for it and if given the chance would love to work and ply their trade that way. But yeah, AFL is an interesting one because someone like Jonah Hill coming into a baseball club, it would be a lot different at AFL level, purely because I wrote in the article the complexities of the sport itself. Traditionally, obviously, footy clubs are run by a coaching group rather than a managerial group like baseball, I guess, is. The coaches sort of wouldn't hand the keys to someone from outside necessarily to make a lot of those decisions. They would form part of those decisions, and there's a lot of guys on the data side working in recruiting now, which is probably where you can get quite an edge because it's a
Yep.
very inexact science. And if you can get a 2% gain, you might pick one guy over another and they end up a 200 gamer sort of thing. But that just forms a part of the puzzle. It doesn't allow you to just bring someone in who makes a lot of decisions, I guess.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's what clubs are getting a lot better at. They're using these guys from the data side and the resources they have to just help form an opinion. They don't have to make the final decision, but they just form a piece of the puzzle, and you just make your educated guess as to how you want to go about things. Same as coaching.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to check out more of our content, go to sporttechdaily.com or follow us on social media across Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram.